Welcome back to another episode of What I Promise, I Deliver. In our previous video, previous class, previous lesson, we talked about IELTS General Writing Task 1. And we said it's all about letter writing. So whenever you see IELTS General Writing, just think of writing a letter. We highlighted the 3 different types of letters you're likely to meet on your test date, and these are formal letters, informal letters, and semi-formal letters. This does not mean that you'll get all those letters at once. It's likely to be either of the 3, and that's the more reason you need to practice and learn how all those letters are written, so that if you get any of them, you will be able to handle it appropriately. Now have it in mind, it's not just about writing in English and using vocabularies, you also need to use the correct structure. You need 6 parts for your letter, where the first part contains the greeting or the salutation, and the last part is, of course, the signing off. So that means you'll have 4 paragraphs in between. Please note that addresses are not important in this part of writing, so avoid them. Brilliant. So the first part of our letter, we are going to greet our recipient. Write the salutation part. And this is a formal letter. We said we don't know the recipient of the letter, so we are going to address them as Dear Sir, Madam. And that's it for the salutation part. We have 6 parts to write. We are done with the first part. Now we have 5 more parts. So move on. So you decided to write this letter. Why did you have to write it? The second part of your letter should contain the reason as to why you're writing the letter. So that is the purpose of the letter. Normally, we write RE or REF, then application for a job or something like that, and then we underline it. In this part of writing, we're going to introduce the purpose of the letter in a prose format, like a paragraph. So we'll have a look at it later on. And just like that, that's it for the second part. So we have 4 more parts to go. The second paragraph, or the third part of your letter, as I said yesterday or in the previous video, you will always have a question with guidelines containing what you're supposed to address throughout your letter. So that means you already have what to write about. You focus on the question and write about what you've been told to write. You'll always have 3 bullet points to address. So it's like you already have a topic sentence for yourself. It's just you to be creative enough and come up with something that will address what you've been told to address. Each bullet point must be addressed in its own paragraph. Now, we had already covered the first part. That was the salutation. We covered the second part. That was the purpose of the letter. And we have 1, 2, 3 parts containing the 3 bullet points that will be given. That means we are done with 5 parts. And now we have the signing off part to do. And that's it. With only 20 minutes allowed for the task and a requirement of just 150 words, you won't be able to include much details. 1, understand the topic. The topic of the question will be stated in the first sentence of the question. Imagine responding to a question which you haven't even understood. How will you even come up with the purpose of the letter? And this will automatically affect the whole letter because you haven't achieved the task. Now, secondly, you need to identify the recipient of the letter. The person you are required to write your letter to will be stated in the second sentence of the question. The common one is write a letter to the manager of Sidika Company, applying for a job or something. Then thirdly, you need to identify the 3 things you must write about, assuming you're making a job application and of course you've been told to write a letter to the manager of the whatever company, and you've been given the 3 bullet points to write about. The first one is introduce yourself, the second one is state your qualification, and the third one could be outline your experience and what you can offer. The first paragraph, of course, we are talking about the body paragraphs. We are done with the purpose of the letter and the salutation part. So now let's talk about the body. The first paragraph of your body, you are supposed to introduce yourself. Only the introduction of yourself. So look at how you can introduce yourself. Remember, it's a job application. You need to introduce yourself very well in that paragraph. Okay. You're not the only one applying for that job, probably. If you are the hiring manager, for instance, based on the letter you have written, will you hire yourself? Why not? After this lesson, of course. Just remember the first impression matters a lot. With only 150 words to write, you won't need many ideas for your formal letter. Just be sure to cover the 3 bullet points you've been given and develop each idea fully. Now let's look at this sample question. It's a nightmare. You missed an international flight due to a problem at the airport. Write a letter to the airline. In your letter, describe what happened that caused you to miss your flight. 2. Explain how missing your flight impacted you. 3. Clearly state what you would like the airline to do. Write at least 150 words. You do not need to write any addresses. And that is our question. So let's try it out. The first thing we must do is greet our recipient. Of course, it's a formal letter, just a reminder. So, dear sir / madam. And that's it for the salutation part. So let's move on to the second part. The second part is, of course, writing the purpose of the letter, right? The reason as to why we decided to write this letter is because we missed an international flight. If we go back to the question, it stated you missed an international flight due to the problem at the airport. And that is exactly what pained you, what drove you to this letter. So I'm writing this letter that is it. I'm writing in regards to an international flight that I missed due to reasons beyond my control. You don't need to make any further explanation at that point. It's like a heading. It's like putting a heading in a paragraph format. Headings are not usually detailed, and so should the purpose of your letter. It should not be detailed. As long as you have addressed the purpose of the letter, that will be all. So imagine we are done with the first part. That was the salutation. We are now done with the second part. And we didn't even have to think so much about it. We had everything in the question. The question gave us the answer. Now, the third part of our letter is, of course, now we have started addressing the bullet points we were given. Here is the first one. Describe what happened that caused you to miss your flight. So that is the only thing you're supposed to discuss in that paragraph. Now, it's not your chance to start lamenting. Just go straight to the point as long as it can be understood clearly. Remember, we are now paragraphing. Don't forget each bullet point has to be addressed in its own paragraph. Here is our response. For the past 2 weeks, I've been traveling for businesses and speaking at international conferences. Unfortunately, I arrived at the Kisumu International Airport 3 hours late due to the technical difficulties experienced by one of your company's aircraft. Consequently, I missed my connecting flight from Kisumu to Kakamega and could not attend the conference. That's it. We've already responded to the question. You do not need to add any details at that point. The second bullet point stated, explain how missing your flight impacted you. Now, we are only going to give an explanation of how missing that flight impacted us, right? How was I affected after missing the flight? So here is our response. As a result of the delay, my company had to send another executive to speak at the conference in Kakamega. This is not only a major inconvenience on our end, but it's also a costly expenditure as well. Additionally, I had to pay out of my pocket money for my lodgings. That is how it impacted me. I had not planned for that, so that was the impact it had on me. And that's it for the whole paragraph. We do not need to add other unnecessary information. And remember to always be polite. Finally, let's look at the third bulletin. It stated, clearly state what you would like the airline to do. So this is now the point. This part only expects you to clearly state what you need. It's like maybe a compensation or something. So what do you need? Okay, you have already identified the problem. You know how it impacted you. What do you think they can do? Of course, they can't take you back to that day and make you not miss your flight. They're just trying to make you feel better, right? So what would you like the airline to do for you? Clearly state in that paragraph. Here is our sample response. Since the delay was caused by your aircrafts, I hope that you will compensate me for the cost of my lodgings in Kakamega, as well as my additional flight to my home in Vihiga, Kenya. So that's it for that paragraph. You've already stated what you would like the airline to do for you. And now let's conclude our letter. And then I look forward to hearing from you at your earliest convenience. As we conclude, just do have it in mind that we use yours faithfully when we are writing to someone we don't know, right? Okay, someone we've never had any previous interaction with. And based on the fact that we are writing an official letter, we are writing to someone we've never met and we don't have a knowledge of. So we are going to use yours faithfully. In essence, what I'm trying to say is, whenever you say dear sir stroke madam at the salutation part, just know that it's going to impact or reflect at the signing off part. So you will use yours faithfully. You use yours sincerely when you're writing to someone you know, okay, or someone you've already interacted with. That's it. I've tried to highlight transition words in red. Advanced grammar structures are highlighted in green. Topic vocabularies have been highlighted in blue. Look at the number of words we have managed to come up with. It shouldn't be anything less than 150 words. So that's a whole letter. We've obviously addressed all the points. We have greeted our recipient, indicated the purpose of the letter. We have addressed each bullet point in its own paragraph. We've also made a proper signing off. Look at the language, look at the vocabulary, look at everything you're supposed to look at. Consider the marking criteria, the grammar, the vocabulary, coherence and cohesion, and task achievement. Remember not to write anything less than 150 words. Thank you for joining me here today. Let's meet in the next lesson. We'll be talking about semi-formal letters. Bye!